Well, fantastic. All right, well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I think I know most of you. If I don't know you, I'm Nicole Zumpano. I am the Director of Distance Learning in a different scope outside of my time here at Triton. I'm also a Google for Education certified trainer and also a Gemini certified educator as well. And here to talk to you about Notebook LM, which is a fantastic tool that's there. In the next hour, we are just going to go through a few things about why this should matter, what Notebook LM can do. I'm going to embed examples, personal examples of my own throughout, and then just give you some additional details as we go along. As we do that, who's used Notebook LM so far? Okay, so a decent mix of some of you that have and some of you have not. That's perfect. Hopefully I can give something to each of you as we get going. In terms of why it matters, we always want to take a step back and see how is using a tool like this going to benefit us in our professional practice. A few different ways just to get you thinking about this is Notebook LM supports the UDL principle of multiple means of representation. So we want to design any content we're creating for all learners. And these are just a number of different ways that this one particular tool can help you do that. And I will give you a copy of the slide deck, so don't worry about having to write anything down. A second way is taking a look at some more current research, even though UDL is still best practices, that tells us that using multiple sensory stimuli can help cognitive performance, a sense of purpose, and learning engagement for our students. And who doesn't want that? This applies to all modalities, whether you are teaching online courses or you are in person with your students. And then finally, if you're familiar with John Hattie's research on the effect and the influences of things that can help our students learn more, there are 3 that have an effect size. The magic with the effect size is 4/10, so 0.04, to make a difference in student cognition and learning. And 3 of these, just that I pulled out off the top of the chart, will help. And this is how Notebook LM can support. So in terms of what it is, when you look at the big picture of it, this is a fantastic graphic that will give you an overview of what it is. This is in the handout that I gave you. And believe it or not, this is an infographic that was generated by Notebook LM based on my slides that I'm showing you today. So everything you see in that infographic are things that we are going to cover. But look at the nice visual that it gives you. Some students might actually like to learn this way as opposed to reading a handout, which is the rest of the document that I gave you. So it's a different way to represent the same information. By way of definition, Notebook LM is an AI-powered research assistant that allows you to interact with your own source material in a more efficient and insightful way. It is owned and made by Google, and it uses Gemini, which is Google's large language model. So that is what it runs off of. And because of all of this, you have to have a Google account in order to use Notebook LM. Anyone can sign up for a free Google account. Someday, maybe in my dream of dreams, we would get Triton to also get an educational account for Google alongside with Microsoft, because they do complement each other. But again, everything I'm going to show you is the free version, so you don't have to worry about any limitations that you see on the screen applying to pro accounts. This is all for the free account.
What does that educational license include? Do you know the specifics?
More protections. And I'm not sure if it applies to higher ed because students who are over 18, but the under 18, there are very great built-in safeguards for their data. So you'll find a lot of educators will input student names, student information, because it lives within the system and it's safeguarded. That also being said, Jim, the vast majority, and my background is K-12 in Illinois, vast majority of school districts, probably 90-95%, are Google-based. Yeah. some corporations are as well. So students having that duality and knowing how to use both platforms is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the process. Notebook LM essentially has 3 different levels of the process. It begins with your sources, and essentially you upload sources, and we're going to go through all of this in detail. You interact with your sources, and then finally you use your sources to auto-generate multimodal content. So this is the interface, and I gave you a screenshot of this as well. This is the entire interface of Notebook LM. You won't leave this page once you go inside Notebook LM. So it's containing you, which is fantastic. And you can see there are 3 separate panels. We have our source panel. This is the input panel where you are going to input the sources you want the program to interact with. The middle section is your chat panel where you are going to engage with your sources. And then the last panel, the studio, is the output. So you can see how the system, the input supports your exploration, resulting in a different output. So let's take a look at each of those areas. Your source area. With your source area, the most unique identifier of Notebook LM is it only uses your sources, or the sources you tell it to. It's not like a regular large language model. Well, it might just pull information from all over the internet. You tell it what you want it to use. So because of that, it only analyzes the content you give it. It cuts down on hallucinations, unless the documents you are feeding it is wrong. So if you have checked your documents, you know everything in your document is 100% correct. If you put it into Notebook LM, you are going to get output that is accurate because it's based only on what you feed it. And that also allows for personalization. In terms of sources, there are a number of different sources that you can input into the system. Websites, which we will come back and talk about a little bit later, PDFs, all of Google and Microsoft's docs, sheets, slides. You can insert audio files or just text, image files, and also the URLs of public videos. Now, if you put in a URL of a YouTube video and you want to use that as a source, it's only going to pull from the transcript. The program is not going to watch your video and get everything out of it. They're going to go only and analyze the transcripts. You're going to see under the source button that there are 2 individual little additional menus. This one gives you the opportunity to pull resources from the internet. So you can pull from the internet if you'd like to. You'll see it has a drop-down menu. It also allows you to pull directly from your Google Drive. Because remember, it's a Google product. It plays nicely with Google, so it makes it very easy to get to your content. The second one here will give you the option to do 2 different types of research. The first type is called fast research. In essence, this is the same thing as a Google search. If I am doing a lesson on simple machines, I can put in the term simple machines, and what Notebook LM is going to do is it's going to search the web, and it's going to give me a list of, say, 10 different sources that have to do with simple machines. I can make the choice to insert all of those. I can say, oh, I only want this one and this one and this one, or I can not insert any of them. But again, remember, those are pulling off the internet. So you don't necessarily know that those are accurate. It's up to you to do the work to go in and test those. The second one is more advanced, and this is where we start getting into that agentic AI, where you give it a command and it begins to think for you. So if I put in that same term, simple machines, and I say deep research, what the system is going to do is it's going to go through hundreds of different websites, it's going to analyze the findings, and then it's going to complete a multi-paged report and kick it back to you. And again, as the content experts, it is your responsibility to make sure you are reading that report and all of that information is accurate. Now, because this is so powerful, it does take a lot of computing time, so it's not instantaneous, and you are limited to only 10 reports a month. So you cannot generate more than that. My advice, my personal advice, stick to your sources. Don't go into the internet search. Don't go into deep research. Put in your sources because, again, you are familiar with them. Hopefully you've created them, you've vetted them. Some tips and FYIs about the source area. You can have up to 50 sources in one notebook. And those 50 sources can have 500,000 words per source. Your source names can be changed. Now, the reason this is important is your sources are going to be listed alphabetically. Some people like to input, say, I'm trying to think of it, an OER resource, say a textbook that's OER, and they want to make sure that the students are using the textbook in order if they're engaging with it. So they might go in and change the name to 01, 02, 03 so that they fall in line numerically. So that's something to keep in mind. The sources that you input also stay static. So if something happens and the material changes, the system does not automatically update. It's your responsibility to take it out and to put in the new source. You can delete sources as well. That said, that could have an asterisk on it because if you create a source and it's part of Google, Google Doc, Google Slides, you'll have the option to come up here and it'll say resync with Google and it'll update it. But again, it won't do that automatically. You have to prompt it. You also have the ability to select specific sources. So if you list 50 sources and you want to generate output on 2 of those, you can deselect everything and only select those 2. So again, you can store them all there and then pick and choose. And then finally, if you are including a URL to a specific website, it will only read the website page that you put up. There's no branching, so it won't click to the second website page or the third. If you want it to reference an entire website, you have to put in every single page URL separately. Okay, the chat. The chat is pretty much what you think it is. It is where you're going to interact. You do have a few options for customization. So you can customize based on your goal, the style, and your role as well. You can also customize the length of responses that you get back. I leave mine set at default because, again, I'm the content expert. I can look at the output of what it's telling me, and I can decide if I want it to be longer, shorter, so on. Tips and FYIs, your chat history stays private. So if you share your notebook with students and you want them to engage with it, they cannot see all of your chat queries. You also have the ability to go in and delete individual queries. If you decide this is no longer accurate or I want to clean up my notebook, you can take those out as well. Chats show inline citations, and this is another powerful piece of the platform. I know it's difficult where you're at to see these, but there are little numbers here, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 2 and 4, because when I prompt it to do something and it gives me a response, it's going to tell me which of my sources it took that information from. So I can go back and I can check my own source and make sure that's accurate. Chats can be saved as sources. So, and I'll show you some examples of why you might want to do that. In essence, it'll save a little bit of time. You don't want it to have to rerun an initial chat. When you are prompting, you want to be very specific and focused because, again, you're looking to get something specific out of the program. So you want to be very detailed and focused in what you're asking it to do. And then finally, you are allowed 50 chat queries a day. And again, that resets every day, but only 50 a day. Okay, so what can it do? This is the most powerful part and the reason that everybody loves Notebook LM. It has to do with the studio, and the studio is your output. And the beauty of it is all of these different multimodal assets that you can design for your courses can help students synthesize and actively recall information. So they're really powerful. We're going to spend some time going through each of them just so you have a general idea of what each one does. And this is where I'll show you some examples. one of the originals, when it first started, there were only maybe 2 or 3 different things it can do, was audio. And we're going to take a look at the audio in a second. One thing to remember also is you see that little greater than symbol. Each one of those means it leads to another menu where you can customize. I'm going to show you what those menus look like. Several of these can be downloaded. Some of them, however, you can only use within the notebook. These assets can also be converted to sources if you want to use them again. And then you also have the ability to change the output language. You stretching, Jim, or you have a question?
Yeah, when you download one of those, what form does it come in?
It depends on what you're downloading. So for example, a slide deck, you can download a slide deck as a PDF. But what's interesting, and we'll get there when we get to the slide deck page, is every slide is an image. So you can't modify it. In some cases, audio, it downloads as an MP4. And what I've done with it then is I've taken it and I've uploaded into my Google Drive, and then I link from it outside of my Google Drive.
In my experience, when you turn into PDFs, you have a problem with ADA.
Yes. This is not ADA compliant.
Every picture does not have.
Correct.
Alternate
Text.
Yeah,
it's not following those new rules. Yes. Great observation. What I do love about these, again, though, is that you can change the output language. So if you have students that are learning in Spanish and you want them to engage in Spanish or in Polish or in Lithuanian, you can go in and you can change that. There's over 80 different languages. Just remember that, and I'll show you what these are. Many of these have a limit to how many you can produce a day. Okay, so audio, this was the OG. If I clicked on this greater than symbol, these are my options for customization. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to generate technically what people refer to as a podcast where 2 AI voices interact with each other. I'll play a sample for you. It's really amazing and very frightening at the same time. But what you can do before you ask it to run this file is you can say, do a deep dive. And a deep dive will give you about a 15-minute audio file. Keep it brief, 5-minute file, critique the content that I'm giving to you, or perform a debate. You can also select the language that you want it to appear in. And again, if you want it to focus on specific things, you can prompt it to focus on specific things. Because again, once you hear it, it's crazy. It's so powerful. And again, it does take a lot of compute time. It doesn't happen instantaneously. You're only allowed to generate 3 audio files a day. So keep that in mind. Now, what's also fascinating, and I'll see if it'll work with the system here, is they've now, this is a new feature, allowed you to interact with the AI host, which is crazy. So I will play a sample for you out of one of my notebooks. I teach for 2 universities, and this particular sample I'm going to play for you. Basically what I did is I took my syllabus from my course that I'm teaching right now on social media and emerging technologies, and I fed Notebook AI my syllabus and just said, generate a podcast about my course based on this. Then what I did is I took it and I sent it to students in a pre-course communication and just said, hey, course is going to start in a week. These are the things you need to know. If you're interested in learning more, listen to this podcast and you'll get a preview. So I'm not going to play, because I did the deep dive, it's 15 minutes, but it's insane, and it actually pronounced my last name correctly. I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to stop it after about 20 seconds and see if it'll pick up the interaction, so you can see that. And you can see this is my notebook for my course that's happening right now. These are my sources that I've uploaded. And again, you can see here, I can check them, uncheck them if I want some of them to generate new output. Here's different ways that I've engaged with it. And then you'll see at the bottom, there will be a ton of different resources there. So let me get the audio. All right, so I'm going to click on it here. And, oh, actually, that's the video. We're going to get there. It's my M4. There we go. Now, this little hand means that it's interactive mode. So I'm going to click on it here. And again, I'll start it and let's stop for a minute. Who's tall enough that can turn the volume up? Because I am not. Thank you. Okay, let me stop there. And I should be able to click on it here and get the interactive mode. Unfortunately, it's not popping up. Let me. Yeah, for some reason on this system I can't do it.
It'll show interactive mode when you move the slider.
So let me click off of it and come back in to the studio. Okay, let's see. Now, because it should pop up here in my chat. I don't know if it's a setting with Chrome here. But again, I mean, those. All I did was upload my syllabus and said, create a podcast for me. And that's it. And those are two AI voices that have created this overview that, again, let's be honest, will most of my graduate students listen to it? No, but some will. And again, in a course on emerging technologies, this is a great way for me to give them the opportunity to jump into it. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why it didn't work, but basically there'll be a little button in here, the little hand raise, and they'll be talking and I'll hit it and they'll say, oh, there's a question. And I could say, what's the late policy? And it'll say, that's a great question, the late policy, and they will go and find the information within my source. If the question is not answerable, they'll come out and say, oh, sorry, I don't have that information available to me right now. So again, it gives the students a different way to interact with the material. All right, next one, slide decks. Now, the slide decks are a newer feature. They still have a little bit of way to go. You can ask it to create a detailed slide deck, again, based on whatever sources you give it. And then you can also ask it to give you presenter slides. You can decide if you want the length to be short or default. And also if you want very specific information, you can go ahead and prompt that as well. What that looks like, and I'll show you an example. That's my input graphics, my videos. That's one thing they have to get a little bit better at with how they label them there. Okay, so expand the viewer. Again, I uploaded sources and it will take me through creating a slide deck. Now, if I notice something is spelled wrong, it's because it's spelled wrong in my original source. I can't come here and automatically fix it because remember, these are generated as images. But what I can do is I can hit the do revise button, and on this particular slide, I could say, spell this word this way, and it will update it. But that's all you can do right now with that. I did a second one as well. I can ask it for a different style and go ahead and change it like this. But again, as a reminder, right now what you can do is you can download it as a PowerPoint or a PDF. And this is the funny thing, this is a Google product, but it does not yet let you download it as a Google slide deck. It'll allow you to do PDF or PowerPoint. But if I download it as a reminder, I still cannot edit it because every slide is just a picture. It's an image. So there's nothing I can do to edit it. And again, I would have to go in and I would have to add all the accessibility because it does not make things accessible. You can also have it generate videos. So again, if you have learners using different languages, you can generate different languages of the same content. But remember, you can only do 3 per day. So just keep that in mind when you're building. And if you want to have it generate in different languages, you have to go into the audio overview and change the language there. You wouldn't change it under your video. It gives you the option to do a cinematic, an explainer, or a brief video. And again, showing you a quick example. Here's a video of the syllabus. So I can continue on and go from there. Again, I cannot make any edits right now to this video, but imagine if you have short paragraphs or topics or criminal justice things, in Greg's case, that you want to introduce to your students, have it generate a video. Just a short, hey, here's an opener, here's to get you thinking about it, or next week, this is what we're going to talk about. And you take these videos and you insert them into an email recap that you send for the week. So just different things that you can do. All I had to do was upload, in this particular case, my syllabus. Same thing. Mind maps. Mind maps are a little bit more limited, but they are still very interesting. What you can do is if you select the mind map, students can interact with anything that is a little caret or it expand. And if they come across a term they don't know, they can actually click on it and it will go to your source material and it will pull from your source material. These, I haven't yet found a great way of how I'd want to utilize them. Oh, I don't know what's generating. If you click on it, it's going to generate. I already have them. So you can see here, based on the sources that I pulled up, everything that has this little greater than sign, it will continue to expand. If I want to click on something, what it's going to do is it's going to come into the chat window. Oh, I wonder why that happened here. It's going to come into the chat window and it's going to answer your question there. These can be downloaded, but if they download, they are a static image and they can no longer be manipulated. So if you wanted to use a mind map with your students, you would probably want them to engage with it right within the notebook itself. Reports. Reports are also very interesting. With the reports, when you drop down the caret, you can see there are a number of different reports. You could do a create your own, a briefing doc, a study guide. If you blog, you could do a blog post, an implementation guide, a manual, or so on. And again, when you click on the pencils, you can define even further what you want it to work on. The handout that you have, the last 3 pages are a briefing doc. So basically what I did is I took this slide deck, I put it in as a source, and I came here and I said, click briefing doc. And it took all of the content from this slide deck and created it into a doc. Then what I was able to do is take it and copy it into Google Docs, and I can add things, change the font, make it accessible. But again, it started doing some of the work for me. With any of the reports, you can generate up to 10 a day. Next up are flashcards. Flashcards can only be used within the system itself. So you would have to share your notebook with students in order for them to engage. Flashcards, they're still coming along. They're one of the newer features. They're simply a self-knowledge check, similar to what you might have in Blackboard. You can generate up to 10 different sets of flashcards a day and show you what they look like. Here we go. This is all they look like. Students would click on it to see the answer. They would self-report whether they got it right or got it wrong. But again, does it offer an additional way for students to engage with your content? Yeah, they would just have to do it inside. There's no way you can pull it out of the system right now. Same thing with the quiz. Again, very similar to Blackboard's knowledge check. You can generate up to 10 quizzes a day, but quizzes stay and live inside your notebook in Notebook LM. And you can see that the quizzes, if I retake it, it'll tell you how many you got right, how many you got wrong, and it'll just generate 10 multiple choice. And it'll give you a hint if you need a hint. Again, simple knowledge check, but with these quizzes, you have to stay inside the system.
When you say you have to stay inside, which part? I mean, you could copy paste, right?
You could, absolutely. I mean, you would, that'd probably be more trouble than it's worth. If you were going to do that, I'd probably say just go to Gemini directly and say, generate, quiz questions based on, but you certainly could.
When you give your students access to your notebook, does it look different to them? Do they have access to all the outputs that you've created?
They have access to all of the outputs and all of the inputs.
Okay.
Their chat section is blank, so they can engage with the chat, but they do not see your chat or your history.
And they can't manipulate anything like.
No, I should put an asterisk on that. You have to give them view-only access. If you give them edit access, it's like having a co-instructor. Yeah. So if you give them view-only.
Okay.
Yep.
And the various tools have limits on how many you can do a day.
On which one?
All of them have limits. So do they eat into each other's limits?
Most of them have limits. You can see here, like in the example of the infographics, they don't have a posted number.
I mean, if you hit your limit on slides, does that affect your limit on audio?
No, they're
okay.
individual assets.
Okay.
Yeah, so on each one. Sorry, I misunderstood that. Getting into infographics, this has also come a long way. Remember the picture from the slide deck that is also on your handout? That is one of the styles. Now you can also have it use sketchnoting or different styles. If you want to create different infographics, you can have them be landscape, portrait, or square. Square would be used on multimedia. That's really where you use it on a blog post or in a social media post. Otherwise, in your class, you'd probably use it as landscape or portrait. Again, you can tell it if you want it to give detailed, standard, or concise level of detail, and also prompt it to the type of infographic and the language that it comes in as well. I'll show you some examples of ways that I've used infographics, especially when we get through these last ones. But real quick, a course roadmap, this is an example. So with this course graphic, same thing based on my syllabus. I had it generate this, and this lives in my Start Here module of my course. So when the students come in, they not only see a link to the syllabus, they see just a quick, here's this infographic, tells you a little bit more about the course. I've got that one. I'll show you some other ways that I've used them as well. This one, no, that was that one. See, they gotta fix their symbols. All right. Almost to the end. Data tables. Data tables are also very interesting as well. You can take a data table based on your sources, and it will export it to sheets. Again, some customization, and there are limits, but Google has not posted what the limits are, so we don't quite know. From what I've read, people have said usually 3 to 4 when the limits are not posted per day. But I have 2 examples for you. This first one is the course curriculum and major assignments. So the way it laid out this table is by week, topic, major assignments, learning activities, resources, due dates. And again, all I did was input my syllabus. I didn't give it any additional instruction. This one is a great one. This is something I added recently to my syllabus. Talking to my students about career readiness competencies. And basically what I did was I uploaded the career ready competencies, I uploaded the syllabus, and then I said, align these, and it created this table where it takes the competencies, communication, critical thinking, equity, and it aligns them to all of my assignments. Okay, some additional samples, and we're wrapping up. I keep a blog, so when I do have the time to continue to blog, what I've started to do now is I will write my entire blog post, and then I'll take the text of my blog post and I'll pop it into Notebook LM and just say generate an infographic or an image based on it. And I'm simply using it as a decorative element, as a way to add a little multimodal content. This is an example. My students at Michigan State, the course I'm teaching now, they have to create an online manifesto. And so because they did it, I wanted to do it too and give them a sample that I did. Same thing, I wrote a blog post with my manifesto for how I think online learning should be. And then I popped it into Notebook LM and said, give me a couple infographics. And so you can see the difference here between a landscape and a portrait infographic. It essentially has the same content, but the look is a little bit different. Then when my students did the assignment in January, I copied their main ideas from all of their manifestos, took all that text, popped it into Notebook LN, and said, give me an infographic that basically tells our course manifesto. So these are all the things that all of us together. It creates a little community, it adds a little visual interest. You know, I gave this to them in one of the email recaps and said, hey, your manifestos were great. By the way, as a class, here's what it looks like that we all believe. Other things I've done. In that same class, we have had a few synchronous meetings where they've had to read a number of different sources, 5 or 6 different sources, and, you know, hey, come on Zoom, we're going to talk about it. I, as the instructor, forgot some of the sources because it had been 2 units ago that I read them. I took them all, I popped them into Notebook LM. I said, generate a review guide of these sources, and I sent it to them prior to the Zoom session. Just saying, hey, we're going to talk about it. If you need a refresher, here it is. It shows them that, you know, I'm not catching them, and if they read the material, but providing them with a resource that can help them remember what we talked about. Rubric versions. You all know here at Triton we use the Anthology Exemplary Course Program rubric to assess new and updated online courses. There are 2 versions. So back the 2023 version, then I want to say a year later, they wrote a brand new one at 2025. I absolutely put my eyeballs on both and then said, what am I doing? And I took both versions and I popped them into Notebook LM and I said, tell me what's different about these versions. What's the same about these versions? And I had conversations about those 2 sources, and this saved me time. Of course, I had to go back and verify, but again, this saved me a few hours of going through and figuring that out on my own. these are some of the prompts that I've done. I've also compared the Quality Matters rubric with our anthology rubric that we use. I've given it different prompts, like what are the changes, what are additional differences, what are things that are in the QM rubric that are not in the anthology rubric. Things like that. The differences, basically, you can see. What features are the same in both rubrics? So again, so I can start to wrap my mind around, okay, what's the same, what's different? Is this worth me spending more time on it? I had mentioned earlier with my audio podcast that I gave it to my students in a pre-course communication. And again, it's not accessible. It did not come with transcripts. So I took the audio file and I put it back into Notebook LM. And I said, generate a transcript based on this. And it generated the text transcript of the audio podcast that it created. And of course, it was on me to go and check and make sure it was accurate. But it did the hard work. And then I just took the text of it and I put it in a Google Doc. And then in my course, we use Canvas over there. It just says audio podcast from the pre-course communication with the transcript, and I link to it. Okay, wrapping up. Your data, anything that you input is not used to train the model unless you give it feedback. If it generates something and you say, this is great content, they might have human eyes go in and say, oh, what's good about this, so that they can improve. Or they might, if you say bad content, they're going to go take a look at it. Not always, but they can. Otherwise, it's never used to train. They can be shared or made public. So again, you can make them public for all of the world to see, OER. But again, you have to determine whether you want the person to have edit access or view only. Edit gives them everything. They're like the owner along with you. View only, again, they can see your sources, they can see your output, and they can interact their own way. So some instructors will actually create notebooks with their course content to give their students the opportunity to engage with the materials on their own as a study guide. You can have up to 100 notebooks per account. If you create 100 and you need 101, you have to go delete one. Or just sign up for a new Google account under a new Google email and get 100 more. They can now be used in Gemini as a source. So if you use Gemini as your large language model, one of the drop-down menus for your source can be your notebook. So with Gemini, instead of me uploading 50 sources, I can go take one of my notebooks that has 50 sources within it, and that uploads as one source in Gemini. Okay, and then I have some resources available for you to check out as well. Their official help site. This is a fantastic document for using Notebook LM, all different aspects of it. OpenStax, Notebook LM did a partnership with OpenStax, and some chemistry, some, I believe, math courses. They have created notebooks that you can use as OER, which is fantastic. I'll pull that up so you can see it if anybody's interested. And then that last one is a really interesting one. It is a shared notebook that has all 50 AI policies or guidance from every state in the country, and they shared that, so you can go and interact with that if you wanted to know more about that. Let me go back real quick. I'll just show you this one and then get you out of here. Right now, you can see the notebooks that they have with OpenStax are biology, psychology, chemistry, business, and management. And I believe early on I sent this to people who could apply to. All right, questions?
So if they take a link like one of those as a student, it'll take them to their own notebook account?
What do you mean? If they
look at it, or they're going into
on the shared ones,
yeah,
it'll take you to that person's account.
and then they work there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and they can interact with it that way. This is a link to the presentation. We'll get it sent out to you as well. If you are copying that down, that is a lowercase l and a 0. I wish Bitly wouldn't use IALO or, but. And hopefully that gave you at least one new idea of ways that you can very easily create content for your students. All right. Well, thank you.
Lots of ideas.
Lots of it. Good. Happy to hear it. All right.
Yeah.